Scaling a business isn't just about generating more revenue.
And when you have limited funds, as a lot of startups do, they're saying, where can I get the most bang for my buck? You have to be able to tell the story of where you're going.
Too many entrepreneurs focus on sales, marketing, and expansion, but neglect the strategic financial leadership. Hello, welcome to Mindset to Results. Today, our guest is Jeff Glick. And the topic of this episode will be why every scaling business needs a strategic CFO. Scaling a business isn't just about generating more revenue, it's about building the financial structure to sustain that growth. Too many entrepreneurs focus on sales, marketing, and expansion, but neglect the strategic financial leadership that actually determines whether growth becomes stable or chaotic. In today's episode, we are diving into why every scaling business needs more than bookkeeping. They need financial clarity, forecasting, and leadership that turns numbers into strategy. I'm joined today by Jeff Glick, head of US operations and outsourced CFO. Jeff has more than 2 decades of experience as a CPA and fractional CFO, helping growing businesses build scalable financial systems, raise capital, and make data driven decisions that support sustainable growth. He is passionate about helping founders move beyond simply looking at numbers and instead use financial insights as a strategic growth engine. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Elena, how are you today?
Thank you. You're most welcome. Before we go to the questions, could you please briefly tell what makes you so passionate about what you're doing?
Well, for the bulk of my career, I worked with startups. I started off as a CPA, then I worked at Merrill Lynch and Solomon Brothers, which are not startups. They were big Wall Street firms. But then I became CFO of a spin-off of Solomon Brothers. And when we left there, we left with a checkbook. And that was it, an idea and a contract to export metal out of Europe. And we built that into a $2 billion company where we started basically from scratch. And it was just so exciting for me where, everything we did, we built systems, we built policies, procedures, internal controls, and we really got to know our clients and the market really well. We were we were the largest seller of precious metals to the automobile manufacturers in the United States for catalytic converters, and it was an exciting time for me. I was young, and I was a CFO of a $500 million company, so it was a bit crazy, and I grew into it. And I just love doing things on my own. I love building. I love going out, meeting people, trying to learn from everybody. And that's what, a startup CFO does, building operations, building teams, mentoring, and try to do everything better the next time. And then after that, I started my own firm called Start You Up, which was a purely with startup and emerging managers, VCs, private equity, hedge funds, family offices. They were all in their incubator stages. So we did CFO and compliance for them. Most of them were SEC registered, so they were startups, but they still had compliance issues. And I did that for 15 years. I helped people take their dream into reality. And that was a lot of fun. And then I went to a kind of a large solar energy company and didn't like that because they already had, policy procedures, internal controls. It was kind of boring. And then I moved back into working for and with startup and emerging businesses at OCFO. And our goal there is to make them bankable. They have a good core business. but they need to get to that next level. And I think that's the main topic of this conversation.
Wow, it is so impressive. Yes, your experience and such a huge success. And knowing that you have that knowledge, as you said, helping driven entrepreneurs to create their dream, like make their dreams reality. Yes, it is really
Hmm.
such a big fuel behind you. Yes, and I am sure that listeners today will learn so much. Yeah, will get so much value from this interview. And thank you so much for your time and share.
My pleasure.
Jeff, what's the biggest financial mistake smart entrepreneurs are making right now that's silently limiting their growth?
I think a lot of them spend money on, marketing, sales, product development, intellectual property, and they don't see the value for good internal financial structures. And it's the boring stuff. It's policies, procedures, internal controls, making sure you have your financial statements timely, accurate, consistent, tracking key metrics, and having strategic reporting. And that, in some cases, is an investment. And when you have limited funds, as a lot of startups do, they're saying, where can I get the most bang for my buck? And a lot of times they don't view it yet with internal operations. But when they get to that next level and they're seeing, I need to do a material financial transaction, that they're the parties on the other side, they're skeptical, and it affects their valuations. So I think that's probably a big error people make. But a lot of that is because they're first timers and they don't know better. So a good CFO becomes a trusted advisor to them, kind of holds their hand through it.
Yes, so you talk about turning numbers into strategy. How should founders actually use financial data to make smarter growth decisions instead of just tracking revenue and expenses?
Well, I think what you have to do is align where you want to go to what you have today. If it's your goal, if you have $5 million in sales and your goal is to be $50 million in sales in 3 years, you need the infrastructure to get there. And how will you get there? You need a 1 year budget, a 3 and a 5 year a financial plan that's structured and can really lead you to it. And that's going to help you get either a partner, a bank loan, or maybe a merger with somebody. You have to be able to tell the story of where you're going, and where you came from is important. But at the end of the day, people invest in people and managers. And unless you have the greatest product in the world that's going to change the world, people look deeper into you and how you manage your business. And they look at your staff and how long you've kept them there, and that leads to other issues.
Mhm. What metrics matter most?
Uh, Free cash flow, EBITDA, let's say, and the growth in it. You could have great margins, but you're spending so much money to achieve those. People look for free cash flow. Margin is really important, but you also have to scale your under the margin expenses as well. And you have to manage those appropriately. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they focus because their core competency is top line growth, not how can we make this more efficient? And sometimes they're not bringing in the right people underneath them to help them.
Mhm. What should they review weekly versus monthly?
Excuse me?
What metrics should they review weekly versus monthly?
Weekly, you always want to look at your cash, especially if you're a small company. I mean, are we burning cash the wrong way? Are we managing cash? You know, and monthly, what you want to look at is obviously it's your a financial cash position, but also are you hitting the goals that you've set forth and look hard at them and figure out why you're not. Is it because your aim so, and why it's not working might be because of your operations or maybe your growth of projections are incorrect and that will dictate other things in the future. But you need a system to measure your operations against your predictions, and also some type of a system to make sure that your predictions are accurate. And that's just over time. Because if you're a small company, you're just pulling stuff out of the air sometimes. You're saying, oh, we're going to grow, 5% a month, which might not happen, or it might be 10% one month, -2 the next month. So you just have to be flexible, but you need to know this information on a timely basis. You can't wait 3 weeks after to look at the prior month.
Yes, so let's speak now about the fractional CFO. The role of the CFO is evolving, and at what stage should a growing company serious consider bringing in strategic financial leadership?
As I mentioned before, I think it's really important for them to realize that what they have has gotten them to where they are in terms of financial infrastructure, but it's not going to get them to where they want to be. Most entrepreneurs, it's not their core competency. So you could get there halfway with a fractional CFO. They become a part of your organization on a part-time basis. They're there for you to sit down with you, help you plan, and get you to that next level. Because a lot of times, entrepreneurs, they don't know what they don't know,
Mhm.
and they're flying blind. The CFO should be telling them the truth that, maybe that their accountant that they've had for 5 years isn't up to the task, especially if it's uh, a family-owned business. It might be a second generation business where mom and dad founded the company, did a really good job, brother and sister took it over and really did a good job. But now they need to grow it so they can bring in their children. And there's not enough money to go around. It could be a great lifestyle business where they have nice houses, drive nice cars, go on nice vacations, send their kids to nice colleges. But now the kids want in the business and have that same lifestyle. And it's there isn't enough to go around to have that lifestyle. And and they're not getting that support from their bookkeeper who could be their cousin and or the bookkeeper is trusted and have been there since the parents ran the place. And they do the same thing every month and then not doing the things that I told you about, tracking metrics, strategic reporting, telling them the truth of what's going on because they're family. And that's a hard decision. So we work with them to try to work around those hard decisions by bringing people over them or underneath them who are strong and can help them and kind of teach them along the way as well.
Yeah, great. So another question is, when does DIY finance become risky?
When does finance become risky?
Yeah.
It becomes risky if you upset the culture of a company. You know, if you start bringing in metrics that are calculating how effective somebody is, now you're putting person A against person B, who's better, but the one that might not be the best operator might be more well liked, and it creates a lot of friction there. The issue is that it has to come from the top down. This is a new culture. We're learning about it, but eventually this is where we want to be, and we're going to help the people who are here already to make the transition. And just be honest, everybody will not make that transition. But it's a new culture, and this is the way we're going to run our business. And it's going to make everybody's life better. The company will make more money, and there'll be more opportunity for everybody to make more money.
Yes, and you mentioned that for scaling business and growth, companies sometimes have to look for partnership or investors and fundraising. So the next question will be about this. When founders are preparing to raise capital, what are investors really looking for financially that most entrepreneurs overlook?
As we spoke before, people invest in people. So that's number one. So if they look at what their history prior to starting this company was, which helps, if they've had other exits or they have industry experience. That's number one. Number two is, are they a good manager, which is important as well, unless the person just wants to sell and leave, which happens a lot as well. So in terms of financial structuring, they want to know that decisions are being made on accurate and timely information, that people know there's a problem before it blows up on them. That's number one. Number two is, do we know how we measure our let's say, gross margin? If you talk to some entrepreneurs, they'll say, oh, I have a gross margin of 50%. Okay, well, how many of those engagements are 75% gross margin? And how many of those are 25% gross margin? And they go, I have no idea. We don't do that. They go, okay, well, that's important because you have to start looking at the 25%, try to get those up to 50 and 60%. But they don't have the infrastructure to do that. They don't have a labor allocation method. They don't have a inventory of their goods and material. So they don't know which planks of wood or windows are being allocated to which project. And they also don't know how much material is walking out the back door or being stolen by the employees. And so that stuff is really critical. So I always use the example, someone owns a really good business, they have free cash flow of, let's say, $2 million a year. It's a great family business. They all live great. And they've been told over the years that their business is worth 10 times free cash flow. So this is great. $2 million, my business is worth $20 million. However, they go to do a transaction and they have to go through a valuation. And yes, they have $2 million of free cash flow. However, there's a lot of risk there. And so either the partner or the bank starts saying, your valuation isn't really 10 times, it's more like 7 times or 6 times. And part of that is other reasons, but a big part of that is their financial infrastructure. So how can I get back 2 times or another $4 million in my valuation? So if you have a better internal financial infrastructure, and let's say that costs you $100,000 of investment. It's not an expense, it's an investment. And you could get back $4 million. You're looking at a 10 to 20 times return on your investment. And so if you put it that way, they just say, oh, I need to invest in my business and I need to do these things. And nowadays, it's not as expensive as it used to be with a lot of the computer platforms, but they still need to bring somebody in to manage that. And a lot of that is what we were talking about before, is that their controller, if you call them a controller, or their accountant, never took that step, never went that extra mile. And that might have been because that person wasn't allowed to because of budget constraints, or it might be that the person says, I got a nice life. Why do we want to screw it up trying to do all these things? So yeah, so that's what they look at.
And what are common red flags?
Uh, Common red flags in terms of their financial infrastructure or their finances.
about their finances. Yeah, when we speak about investors, for
Right.
investors.
So investors like seeing constant growth. They like, so, if you're going up and down, let's say, that's not good. They want to see consistent growth. They want to see that the planning aligns with actuals. So you have the right people there who can help you grow on in a strategic method. The other things are, as what I said before, their reporting is late, inconsistent, wrong. It might be on a cash basis and not a cap basis or accrual basis. So there's no real way of knowing what's going on. As they go through the due diligence and they start testing their allocations might be incorrect because they're using, some methodologies that are 20 years old because no one upgraded them. So is their margin 50% or maybe it's 48% and that other is being taken away from SG&A or overhead expenses. Maybe they need to take a better look at it. Are they tracking benchmarks? Like, how does this company compare to others in the industry? And do they know, are they aware of that they're not making the grade? And that's going to cause a devaluation of their valuation.
Yeah, consistent growth is one of the factors. Is there anything else that signals confidence?
I think being able to maintain your staff is really important. Consistency is important because if you have a constant people going in and out of your company, that creates issues because you are not as strategic as you might be. You might not be spending the money in training, and it costs money to hire, train. Someone leaves, hire and train, and it's just a cycle that people don't like. The other issue is, they start looking at other risks that you might have that you're not dealing with. It could be your insurance policies aren't accurate to the risks. I mean, a lot of people don't go into a thorough review of their directors and officers insurance, their errors and omission insurance, their environmental insurance, and all these other things. And that's a risk that needs to be taken into consideration. So that also can be an impact on your valuation because you have risks going back 4 or 5 years, depending upon the industry, that are not insured. And who's going to pay for that if something happens? So all that really goes into just proper management. And that's why building a bench and a good team really helps. And that's what a fractional CFO can get you closer to that.
Yes, we mentioned about consistent growth, also background, history. What about startups? As yourself, you started from the
Right.
idea and build business up to 2 billion. So, what helped you to scale so fast, and what was that maybe really tools which helped you in your experience?
Um, what we did was we were we built the infrastructure first. So the first people I hired was Ernst and Young as our auditors because our people we were selling to our customers were GM, Chrysler, Ford, Mitsubishi, all the biggest manufacturers in the world. We were also trading partners with all the largest Wall Street trading firms. We were also for some of the biggest traders on the New York Mercantile Exchange, the Tokyo Commodity Exchange, and the London Precious Metals Exchange. So we needed to have expert infrastructure. So we knew what was going on. And that was our first thing. And then from there, we could take the baby steps to grow efficiently, effectively, and strategically. And most normal startups that they didn't have, let's say, the financial backing we had, but that they still have to think about that. Where I'm a startup, I can't do everything by myself, but sometimes they have to do it by themselves. But bring in the right people at the right time to help them get to that next level. Obviously, a startup, depending upon what it is, they might need to invest money in intellectual property, getting that patent, or maybe they need to put money into going to a conference or a sales meeting, which costs a lot of money, that they should understand what their expenses are and what the cash flow is. And at the appropriate time, go out to the market. And the market could be friends and family, it could be former employers, or to get more funding, but know exactly what all the numbers are and what the margins are in the industry, and give them a clear path of your strategy.
Yes, so now let's speak about technology. Technology is transforming accounting and financial leadership. What tools or systems are non-negotiable today for a company that want to scale intelligently?
I think it's, as in the past, you have to invest in the right technology. When I started, I was doing hand accounting on big sheets of green paper. And then we moved to, larger accounting systems that were in our offices, on our computers, in the computer room. Then we moved to, let's say, a QuickBooks type system. So it's always evolving, and you have to know what's out there. And to kind of restate it, you need to have controls. You need to know what's going on. Today, there's other issues out there. There's, you know, crime going through the internet. You need internal controls. You need cybersecurity, which you cannot do without. If you're dealing with people's credit cards, you need best of class security. And that really helps build trust in you. And when someone comes in to do their due diligence, they're going to say, show me your security plan, show me your compliance of it. So just having it written down doesn't mean it's being followed. You need to really show it's being followed. And people say, okay, my investment is safe, at least in that section of operations. And each business is different. So technology is great. It makes you more efficient. It creates more opportunities for people because they're not stuck in the numbers. So you could be more proactive instead of reactive. And if you have the right people who can think and are aggressive, it's going to help you grow faster. But you need the right people.
Yes, yes, people is the key. Yeah, people are the key. The
It's
big
always the people.
yes. So the next question is you already mentioned it partly, but let's just speak more about it. What separates companies that scale? In your experience, what separates companies that scale successfully from those that at a plateau financially? Is a discipline, forecasting, leadership mindset, or cash flow control?
Uh, or all the above. And all the above means it's leadership. Do they, and it could be not the leaders of the company, it could be their board of advisors. Do they have the right people who are trusted advisors to them, giving them the proper education and leadership along the way? As we said, most executives, they haven't, most executives who are younger, they haven't learned everything yet. That they haven't had that situation where they stayed up all night worrying about something that they didn't even know existed 3 days ago. And so that's the real critical thing is leadership and people. Do you have the right people to help you along the way? And they know that you have their back and they have your back. and you could grow as a team and cross-pollinate information to each other.
Yes, so now let's say if we have a practical 90-day action plan. Let's say
Okay?
a founder listening right now and he wants to strengthen their financial foundation in the next 90 days. What are the first three actions they should take?
They should look at, or can they, the first thing they have to ask themselves, can they trust their financial statements? Does it make sense? How does it relate to actual operations? Do we need to go back and change the whole platform? You know, like I said prior, it could have got set up wrong and management doesn't know the difference. They just see what the numbers are and they're not giving them strategic information and tracking key metrics. So what I always say is, what are the key metrics people ask you about? If you have an investor come in and they start asking you questions, what's this? What's that? How does this work? How does that work? And can you show me evidence of that in your financial statements? And they can't, then they need to reorganize their financial statements. That's number one. Do they have the information at hand to make a decision instead of saying, I think it's going to be this, and not have that information? That's another key to reorganize your financial operations. If you can't operate your business, you don't have the right information. And that's number one. And then once you have your books and records reorganized, then you can start looking forward and building a really good strategic model that mirrors your operations today and where you want to go and enables you to track metrics and benchmarks. And that's really key.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure that our listeners will benefit a lot from your expertise. And Jeff, based on everything you've seen working with scaling companies, what is the one mindset shift about or around money that separates reactive founders from strategic leaders?
I think strategic leaders learn from the past and they haven't achieved everything that they wanted to. And they took the time to go back and say, where did I either go wrong or not do as well as I could have? I built a business, I had a decent exit, but not what I was expecting. And use that history to build that next company. If you see a lot of really successful entrepreneurs, they make their big kill, not on their first business, not on their second business, on the third or fourth business, because they made the errors already and they've learned from them. So they got slapped around a bit. Maybe they lost money, but they also learned to really appreciate their investors and to really understand that they're a custodian of their investors' money. And I think a lot of young entrepreneurs don't understand that. And that's really key because if you need to go to a second round and a third round and a fourth round, and your investors trust you, they're going to want more of that business. And so it's time, it's learning, and it's experience. So I said this at the beginning, people invest in people. Watch your track record. How have you done? And what mistakes have you made that you will never make again? You hope.
Yes, yes, thank you so much. If there is one thing to take away from today's conversation, it's this that revenue alone doesn't build a strong company, but clarity does. And when you treat finance as a strategic function instead of back office task, you stop reaching to numbers and start leading with them. And that's when growth becomes intentional, sustainable, and scalable. So ask yourself, are you guessing or are you leading with clarity? And thank you so much for listening to Mindset to Results. Thank you, Jeff, for being amazing guest today and sharing your knowledge, expertise, and passion with our audience. And I'm
Uh,
looking forward to see you again in our future episodes.
Take care. Thank you very much. Have a great day.